Welcome to the Finding Phil podcast, where I set out to find Phil through discussions of recovery and self-discovery. Hi, my name is Phil. Hey, welcome back, listeners. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Finding Phil podcast. My name's Phil Hendrick. I am your host. Okay, so this week I am flying solo again, but this is going to be one of those open or share from the heart episodes. But I have had some time to be praying and thinking about what I was going to share this week, but I don't have any bullet points or an outline or anything like that. So we're going to still qualify this as a Dear Journal episode, but I am also still titling it I'm Getting Some More Help. So we'll look into that. Before we get into the episode, I got to tell you, I've made a commitment to release a new episode every Thursday. So you will have gotten this episode or you should have gotten a notice about this episode by the end of the day today, Thursday. So yeah, I'm recording this Thursday morning, and behind me in the other room, I've got like a suitcase that's halfway packed for the weekend because I'm actually getting ready to fly out of town to teach an installer training course for the company I work for. So it's just been a hectic week planning for the trip, and honestly, what we're going to get into, it was hard for me to just hit record and start talking about what we're going to start talking about, because honestly, it's I'm not sure how much I want to just open up to you, the audience. But we'll see where we go with that. Still haven't even recorded the episode yet. I mean, I'm just doing this in real time, so we'll see how it goes. But it was hard for me to go ahead and just say I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you again for being a faithful listener and tuning in every week. Thank you for those of you that have rated me on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate that. Feel free to do a review as well. Like I said, the more engagement on Apple Podcasts, or actually any of the platforms, it's going to make the show more discoverable for other people that might need some encouragement, that might be feeling alone in their journey of recovery and self-discovery. So, and that's all I'm really trying to do is just, there's no good reason for me to open up and let myself be so vulnerable if I didn't think it might encourage somebody. It's sure not going to impress anybody, because, this isn't the type of show that's going to bring me any type of accolades or special recognition, because when I really open up and get raw with you guys, I mean, I'm really sharing my weaknesses with you. So, so thank you. Let's continue to help encourage other people out there that might want to hear this show by sharing, recommending, reviewing, rating. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe and hit the like button as well. That'll help. So, all right, well, without further ado, let's get on into the show. Okay, so this week we are going to talk about how I'm getting help again. So a few weeks ago, I had a talk with my wife, and we sat down and had a heart-to-heart, and she basically opened up to me and shared with me that it was time for me to consider going to counseling to work on another character defect. So and that is part of our 12 steps in recovery, is to ask God to show us those character defects and to help us correct them. And those of you that are married, I'm sure you can relate to the fact that our spouse is typically the one that is speaking, that God is speaking through to us most of the time. It could be close fellowship in other ways, maybe your pastor, maybe a close friend, but my best friend is my wife, Tiffany. So It is an answer to prayer. It is a like I said, it's a way that God's being faithful to me and helping me through this 12 steps. And so, yeah, I got that was actually well over a month ago. It took me a couple of weeks to not procrastinate too much more on that, to getting an appointment scheduled, but I did. I've had a few appointments now, and it's been going really good. I enjoy the counselor, and for me to just be able to open up and talk, as you guys know, being a listener of this show, you know that's not too hard for me. But to open up to a microphone is a lot different than being able to open up to somebody, especially somebody that's trained and educated and being able to help somebody work through some stuff. So some of the feedback has been interesting. The first week that I went in, I opened up, I explained, hey, this is why I'm here. This is the talk my wife and I had. And I'll just kind of open up a little bit about what the biggest thing is. And it is anger. And it's something that has been part of my life all the way back into my childhood. I mean, one of my earliest memories of anger being out of control, and I know this isn't the earliest incident, but because I have such a terrible memory, my memories of things are limited. But I mean, as far back as I can think, would have been an anger outburst I had towards my older brother, and I don't know why I was holding on to a catcher's mask, but I happened to have a catcher's mask in my hand, and he was doing something or said something, picking on me. I don't know. He made me upset, and I threw it at him. And of course, he was able to dodge that pretty easily, and it hit the glass stove front. And needless to say, I got in some trouble over that one. And I actually remember having to sit there and watch the repairman, who actually happened to be a cousin, fix it. And so I remember that there being a lot of, that's seared in my brain but there's been so many more incidences of anger throughout my life. And that earliest one I can think of, I'm guessing I was somewhere between the ages of 9 and 12. I'm not sure exactly where in that age. Maybe it wasn't that long, ago, but another one, very embarrassing moment for me was, at a softball game. And this is actually only about 13 or 14 years ago, when we still lived in Michigan, and I was playing softball with some friends. And man, if any of you guys are listening, you know the story I'm going to get into, because it was out there for everybody to see. So I was having a bad streak at bat. And, I was getting a lot of pop outs, I was, getting pop flies that were getting caught. And so, it's softball, for crying out loud. How hard is it to get on base? But no, I was swinging for the fences, and it would just keep popping and, up in the air, and people catch it, and I was out. So, I was on a bad streak of that, and had another one, and I just got mad, and I was holding on to my, $200 softball bat, and I was getting ready to just nail the ground with it as hard as I could. But for whatever reason, the value of the bat came to mind. And so I'm like, well, no, I don't want to break this. So I turn and I walk towards the dugout. And as I'm walking towards the dugout, I see the plastic drain tile on top of the fence. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm hitting. And not even with the bat. No, full force, as hard as I could. I punched that thing with my fist, and the plastic drain tile gave way really easily to the steel bar underneath it. And yeah, immediate mistake. And I don't know if you can see it here on YouTube, this video. If you can see how I have a lot less knuckle right there. But yeah, so I thought I just dislocated it. I had never broken any bone in my body in my whole childhood. So I really didn't know what a break was like or felt like. But yeah, I couldn't move it. It wasn't moving. And I'm like, hey, let's how do I get this relocated? And some friend said, oh yeah, just, hook your two fists together and pull. And I did that, and it pop, crunch, pop. And I thought I reset it because it didn't really hurt too bad doing that, but that was just because I was in shock. and so, but it was still wouldn't move. So I'm like, man, I got to get back in the game. and so, I don't know. Somebody said, "Hey, there's a paramedic at one of the other fields. Why don't you go talk to him?" And I don't know how many times I pulled on it, thinking I was trying to reset a dislocated finger, but I was just sitting there pulling on broken bones over and over again. And I walk over to the other field where this guy is supposedly a medic, and he said, "Yeah, you probably should have that one looked at the hospital." And I think I pulled on it one more time, and by this time that initial shock numbness had wore off. So this time when I pulled on it, it really hurt. And so I turned to start walking back towards my field, and sure enough, things started getting a little dizzy. And I remember the last thought I had was, I need to sit down. And that was the last thing I remember. And so by the account of one of my great friends, he was actually the best man in my wedding. His oldest daughter happened to be watching me, and she saw me just go white as pale and stiff as a board and fell straight forward right on my face in the dirt. And she was pretty young at the time. She freaked out. She thought I died. And next thing you know, I'm being woke up. Somebody's pouring water on my face because I fell right on my face. I broke my nose and I bit my lip, and I just, so that was pretty embarrassing. And I did end up going to the ER, and yeah, it looked like I had been in like some fight or whatever. And, I joked with the nurses, yeah, you should see the other guy. But that was a pretty embarrassing moment. And honestly, I don't think I've hit anything since then, because that was, I guess you could call that my rock bottom on destroying things from my anger. Throughout the years since then, I think I have destroyed a tape measure or two, being upset with work and it's just been a problem. It's something that I've never really known what life is like without having an anger issue. So it's there. I hate it. I'm not proud of it. I'm embarrassed by it. But I'm putting that out there to you guys just to say, look, I need help again. I need some more help. So that's what I've been doing the last few weeks, talking. I haven't even shared that story with the counselor yet, but that story just came to mind right now. But the way it's come out with my family has been, I'm embarrassed about that too. I struggle with what effect or what, how that's affected my children and their upbringing. I can lecture like no one else, and that is a part of the anger. It's the constant, the intenseness. Instead of a gentle rebuke, it's been an aggressive rebuke, with either a stern stare or sometimes just flat out yelling. And the damage that has done, I hope it's not too late for me to be able to repair and make amends with my family on that. But I'm encouraged by God's faithfulness. I'm encouraged by God's patience with me, and I'm definitely encouraged that that's been expressed through my wife and through my kids. They give me a lot of grace that I don't feel like I deserve. And so as I got into that first meeting with the counselor, by the end of the meeting, she had said, it sounds a lot like shame. I don't remember exactly how we were talking to where she came to that conclusion. And I said, I hadn't really given much thought to that word, at least that word shame. I've used the word embarrassed. I've used the word frustrated. I've used all kinds of things. I don't know if I really ever used the words to express what's going on in the inside as shame. And so I spent some time looking into that, and it seems so elementary because I listen to a lot of other podcasts in recovery based podcast. And man, it's weird because now I'm hearing that topic a lot. I explained to my wife that 2 of the different shows that I subscribe to on a regular basis and listen to on a regular basis have actually said or had episodes in the last week on the topic of shame. And I was telling my wife, I said, that's, I wonder if these people collaborate. And she made the point. She's like, no, there's a greater orchestrator than these people just calling and contacting each other and saying, hey, let's talk about shame this week. So God has been speaking to me through other podcast shows. He's been, my counselor brought up Brene Brown. I've looked into her a little bit, watched her TED Talk on YouTube, or one of her TED Talks on YouTube, and I've been trying to tune into some of her episodes, which have been great. She just brings on great guests. But, to actually hear her teaching, I haven't heard her teaching on it too much yet. I want to look into that more. I want to check out her Netflix episode. It's been a learning process. And I don't know much about it. I'm not even going to be trying to teach on that or really teach you guys anything about shame. I don't have enough information. I don't have enough knowledge on it to teach anything on it. Maybe I can get a guest on sometime in the future to talk to us about it. But this is just me sharing. This is just me explaining what's been going on the last few weeks. So this past weekend, though, great weekend with my son camping, and really blessed that I had a really great opportunity to just bond with my son. It was just my son and I, and then another group, a family, close family friends to our family, and it was their whole family. So 4 couples, I think, and their kids and stuff. But they were all hanging out. They were all staying in the cabins at this place we were at. And I was set up in a tent, and actually, pretty good hike away. So there was a lot of time where my son and I were just by ourselves at our tent site. And actually, we had to ride out a pretty big storm. And that's actually the second time my son and I have been camping together and have had to ride out a pretty nasty storm. The last time was a couple of years ago, and that one destroyed my tent. And it wasn't a really big tent. So for this trip, I actually had to replace that tent that got broke from the last storm. It was a bigger tent. I also brought a canopy, and I had those things staked down good. I mean, real good. They didn't budge, and we stayed bone dry through these storms. But it was still scary for my son. And we set the chairs inside the tent to ride out the storm, and we were able to have a really good talk. There was something that had happened that evening that he had to get off his chest about, and I was just really blessed to be able to speak some truth and life into him. I was very cognitive and self-aware of my tendency to want to get angry about little things, about stupid things, and express that anger or frustration or express things in a stern voice with my son. I mean, that's happened in the past with other camping trips. And so I was really determined with this trip that I wasn't going to do that, that I was going to stay laid back. And sure, I have a 12-year-old son, and he needs guidance and he needs correction. And so there were some times I had to talk to him, but I just made sure I talked with a gentle voice the whole weekend. And it made for a great weekend. And that moment that we had riding out another storm together, and the talk that we had during that time was a real blessing. I don't know why I went down that road, but I just, that this is a journal episode, so I guess that's what I'm talking about. But to get onto this point of my counseling and understanding my triggers and what was my anger rooted in. We got home from our camping trip Sunday. I actually initially planned to camp through Sunday night and come home Monday because it was Memorial weekend or Memorial Day. But we came home Sunday. My son was ready to come home after riding out that one storm, and it looked like there could have been another storm coming Sunday night. So we're just like, nah, we'll come home. So we came home, and so Monday I just stayed laid back, and actually I decided to binge watch a TV series, and I don't do that very often. I mean, sometimes, but I'm typically the person that has a hard time sitting still and watching TV all day long, but I allowed myself to Monday. And the series I discovered, I don't know, a month ago or so, because we resubscribed to CBS All Access, and I discovered the TV series SEAL Team. In one of the episodes towards the later half of the first season, the character Ray, he's Bravo 2. This is Bravo team, and Bravo 1 is the team leader. Bravo 2 is his right hand man. So Bravo 2, that's Ray. Ray had injured his shoulder just before a deployment, and his team leader Jason had told him, you got to get that checked out. You got to get cleared on this before we deploy. He basically lied to his team leader, Jason, about having been checked out by the doctor and having been cleared. And he said he's all good to go. He's on the mend and he's feeling good. Well, later on in the season, as they're on their deployment to Afghanistan, the team is in they're in an op where they're trying to take out a sniper. And so they're chasing down this sniper on a rooftop, and Bravo 2 Ray, he's closest contact to the sniper, and sniper's pinned down, and they're on the rooftops in the city, and Bravo 1 tells him, okay, frag him. So Ray takes out a frag grenade and goes to toss the frag grenade to where the sniper's hunkered down, and that shoulder that he said was on the mend or that was doing good actually seized up on him, and he balked on the throw. And as a matter of fact, the grenade went down into the alley and blew up, and they still ended up taking out the sniper, and that part of it was fine. And so even in that episode, it didn't seem like it ended up being that big of a deal that he, botched the throw. But later on in the next episode, he finds out that there was a 10-year-old boy, a local citizen, that was killed by that grenade when it went down into the alley. And actually, that boy was celebrating his 10th birthday, and it was actually on film from his family, how he died. And so this gets back to him. Of course, people in the team, they're like, hey, man, this is war. This was not your fault. It was an accident, and it happens, and this is part of war, and unfortunately, collateral damage happens. And even the CID, the investigator, said the same thing, and he made his statement, and his team backed up his statement, and of course he withheld this information about how he knew he had a bad shoulder. And so I think it was over another episode or so that starts to develop that he's going to have more questioning with CID. And as a matter of fact, one of the other team members said, hey, I've got the video footage, the drone footage of that whole thing, and I can actually see really clearly, your shoulder was off. And so this team member is even suggesting that they're going to withhold that video and not submit it to CID. And in the time, Ray is becoming very self-loathing and very self-deprecating over the event, and very guilty. He comes to the point he's 100% responsible for this child's death. And it's only because he lied about his shoulder, and that he was convinced he was going to pay the full price, the full penalty of his mistake. and tells his other team member, no, you can't help me cover this up. I'm coming clean on this. And so there's this great buildup and, of course, all the drama that goes behind it. And he gets to where he has the meeting with the investigator. And one of the first things he says is, I need to add to my statement. Didn't need to change his statement because he hadn't lied or anything to the CID officer at this point. But he did say, I did lie to my team leader about my shoulder before deployment. I've got this. And then the next thing you know, the whole narrative just starts to change. The investigator says, oh, yeah, you got the rotator cuff? Yeah, me too. I've had that. Man, it really sucks, and it's a pain, and explains that. Well, thanks for giving me the extra information. I'm going to go ahead and just rule this as, as just incidental and not negligent. And we're going to offer some restitution to the family, and we're going to call this a closed case. And Ray's just sitting there thinking, no, you don't understand. It's my fault. It's my fault. And so at this point, watching this episode, I'm getting tears. I mean, I'm getting completely choked up because I was in that situation. That's where I find myself with my past mistakes. This is where I find myself with my shortcomings. I have somebody sitting right across from me saying, the case is closed. We're going to go ahead and write out, I'm going to sign off on this. And, it's an unfortunate event, but it's what's typical of what happens in war, of collateral damage. I find myself sitting across from Jesus at the table, saying, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that you did that. Yep. You made that mistake. Okay. Yeah. You failed there. Oh yeah. You hurt that person. Okay. Well, turn the page. And I'm sitting there saying, but Jesus, don't you understand? Don't you understand this is what I did to this person? Or don't you understand this is where I totally dropped the ball? Don't you understand? It's like, yeah. And that was what was happening with Ray and the CID investigator. And the only advice the investigator said is, hey, you should have that looked at. You should have that shoulder taken care of. There was no condemnation. And I'm trying to grasp this in my own life. And I've been a believing, practicing Christian for over 24 years. And I still find myself sitting at the table saying, you don't understand. This was one of the questions the counselor asked me this week when I was there. We were talking about another area where I felt like it was complete shortcoming. And she said, well, do you feel like you did your best? And I'm like, no. It's funny, you guys, if you've been listening to all my episodes, I talked about this about 3 or 4 episodes ago. She said, do you feel like you were doing your best? And I'm like, no, because I think if I was doing my best, I would have done it right. I would have done it perfectly. And we had to talk through that some more. She had to, she had to explain to me, okay, so if you were to take all of the circumstances, okay, you were still drinking, which was a self-medication behavior for me, and giving these other pressures that you have or had at that time, would you say you were doing your best? And I'm like, she's like, if you were looking at somebody else in that situation, would you think that they were doing their best with what they had? And I, okay, maybe. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I'm working on this. This is something for me to learn from. And it's going to be a process. And I know I'll probably be going to the counselor for a while to work through these things. And, I'm going to continue to just share openly from the heart with you guys. Like I said earlier, there's no real good personal. There's nothing I'm going to personally benefit from sharing this with you guys. I actually share from the heart pretty easily. It's been a natural bent for me. It's something that just comes naturally. I've always been able to kind of just open up. Like I said, with the counselor, I don't have a problem talking and opening up to her. When I'm in my open share group with my Celebrate Recovery brothers, I don't have a problem talking. As a matter of fact, I have a hard time keeping it under the 5 minutes that we try to do. So I'm doing this because I'm really hoping that if you've tuned into this to hear me embarrass myself, well, that's good for you. I mean, if you don't have the same problems that I have and you're just kind of like, just eating the popcorn, waiting for the next crazy thing for me to share openly on this show, that's fine. Okay. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for the person that might be experiencing, maybe not all, but maybe some of these same things. And you haven't been able to talk about it, or you have felt very alone in this. And maybe anger is an issue for you. Maybe perfectionism is an issue for you. Maybe shame is an issue. I don't know. Maybe I didn't touch on anything that you can directly relate to this week. But maybe myself or maybe one of my guests in another week or in another episode may have already or will share something you can relate to. But that's really what this has been about for me. I'm going to try to give myself some more grace and relieve myself of some of this pressure of I'm going to stop, or I'm going to try not to use the phrase I promise to come out with a new episode every week. Every Thursday, because like this one's going to come out late today on Thursday, and I'll have had to edit it at the airport and maybe on the airplane, so it probably won't get uploaded until I get into my hotel room tonight, this evening. But I got to give myself a little grace and not feel like I have to do this podcast perfectly. I haven't done it perfectly from the beginning, so I mean, I should really definitely let go of that. But if I don't make it on a Thursday, I am sorry. I'm going to try my best to do one every week. Every Thursday is a commitment that I'm making, but it's a commitment I might not be able to hold up, and that's okay. I am trying to come up with more of a format to follow that might be easy for me to follow. I'm going to try to, I need to get a guest on. That's hard though. It's I was talking to my wife about it and she was kind of giving me some advice. All right, well, do this X, Y, Z and see if that helps. But I do all of this balancing a family life and a full-time job. And that job even involves me flying to Atlanta a few times a year. So, that was kind of the pressure happening this week. But thanks for sticking in here with this episode. Thanks for listening to me. Thanks for not judging me. Hopefully it was an encouragement to you. I probably could have shared more on it, but, I didn't. Like I said, I didn't do the bullet points. I didn't do an outline. I just kind of let things come out. And like I said, that's why we're going to make this disclaimer on this title a Dear Journal episode. So y'all have a blessed week. Pray for my travel as by the time you watch this, I will already be in Atlanta, but maybe you can pray for me to get back safely and COVID-19 free. But I'm not too worried about that. Just, I'm cooperating with all the precautions and y'all be blessed.